All right, so we're going to bring up Nelson Nash, our Nelson Nash. Mr. Nash is the discoverer and developer of the infinite banking concept and the author of Becoming Your Own Banker. Nelson remains a popular teacher and lecturer on the infinite banking concept through dividend-paying whole life insurance. A native of Georgia, Nelson received a BS degree in forestry from the University of Georgia and graduated class of 1952. From 1953 to 1963, Nelson worked as a consulting forester in eastern North Carolina. During more than a 35-year career and experienced in the life insurance industry, Mr. Nash worked with the Equitable Life Insurance Society of the U.S. and with The Guardian. Recognized for his high achievements, Nelson was inducted as a Hall of Fame member by Equitable, a chartered life underwriter, and a life member of the $1 Million Roundtable. A pilot for 60 years, Nelson has flown with the 69 years. You got to update your bio on the website. We'll talk to David about that. A pilot for 69 years, Nelson's flown with the Army National Guard and earned Master Aviator wings during his 30 years of military service. He has been married to Mary Nash for more than 50 years. The couple lives in Birmingham, Alabama. They have 3 children, 10 grandchildren, and 5 great-grandchildren. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our Nelson Nash to the stage.
Thanks, guys. Good to be with you. Appreciate the opportunity. Yeah. You know, after hearing Bob talk, smartest thing I could do was probably sit down and say, hi there, and that's it. I don't recognize a number of you in the room, so I need to know something about you. You've already heard something about me. How many of you have heard me speak before a full 10-hour seminar? Okay, how many have not? Okay, hallelujah. How many of you read my book, Becoming Your Own Banker? Who has not? You have an opportunity right over there. My second book, Building Your Warehouse of Wealth, how many have read it? How many have not? Dave, look at that. Did you bring some? Okay, that gives me an idea of what to talk about. Look, for the 10-hour seminars that I do, it requires 15 hours of material to work from, okay? I don't have all that much time. Empathize with me. I'm like a mosquito in a nudist colony. I know what to do, but I don't know where to start. So you know about my forestry background, you know about my life insurance business, you know about my you don't know about my real estate business, do you? Okay. All right. Timber is real estate, folks. I've read a lot of books on real estate. Read all those books and you'll find that none, 0, are talking about real estate. Every last one of them are talking about leverage. They say, all you got to do is go out and buy some property. Now, borrow the money to pay for it because you're always dealing with borrowed money. Pay interest for a while, sell that real estate. All you had tied up was that little bit of interest. Yes, that leverage is wonderful. So long as everything is going the way the financial geniuses describe it. Now, we don't have time to get answers from you, so I'm going to have to tell you. 90-day notes at your local commercial bank in the late 70s, interest rate was 8%. That's prime rate. Now, I'm not prime. I've done seminars all over the United States and Canada, and I have never met a single person who was a prime customer of a bank. I met one who said that he was, but I think he was lying. That's what the gopher at the bank told him. He was, to make him do business with him. I'm not prime either. Us peons got to pay 1.5 over. Okay, 8% interest in the late 70s. 1.5 over, that's 9.5% interest. I made some money in timberlands in the late 70s at 9.5% interest. Then along came 80 and 81, and interest rates went to 21.5. That was prime. Add a 1.5 to it. Now, I know this is complicated for some of you. 21.5 plus 1.5, that's 23% right? I got caught owing $500,000 at 23% interest under those circumstances. Now, that doesn't sound like much money to you, but look, I'm an Austrian economist. I've been studying this stuff since 1957. And you know that Leonard E. Reed, the guy who started the Foundation for Economic Education, was my mentor. I know all about Mr. Greenspan and Mr. Bernanke, how they've increased the money supply big time. A dollar back in 1980, that's 3 times as strong as the dollar today. All right, so you got to take that $500,000 and multiply it by 3 to bring it up to today's standards. That means getting caught $500,000 at $1.5 million rather at 23% interest. I've got a little bit more respect now, don't I? Now, in addition to that, I was dealing with partnerships in this development real estate that I got. I was going to say conned, but I willingly got into the development real estate business in partnerships with guys. Okay, there was this project that in '81 that it's one of those you can't lose money on. It's impossible. It was gorgeous. Well, one of his partners was a big name lawyer in Birmingham, a principal in the firm. He was one of the names on the firm. He owned 35% of the project. Folks, he bankrupted on us. Yeah. We had to eat his portion. My share was 300. Now, y'all keeping up with this? 500 plus 300? Y'all got that? Y'all computing this? I saw during those horrible times that I had been listening to the world, and the world has always been wrong about financial matters and everything else. I saw that I could get the money during those times at 5, 6, and 8% interest from 3 different life insurance companies, and the only limit I could get to was how much did I put in. Now, I was paying $18,000 a year life insurance premiums in 1980. Well, multiply that by 3, that's about $80,000 today. Oh, about $60,000 today. Okay, that's fairly respectable out there by most people's standards. Yes, but you see, as an Austrian economist, I know there's only one pool of money out there. The fact that various and sundry banks, insurance companies, corporations, and individuals, and in various and sundry countries and currency denominations is managing a portion of that pool of money is incidental. So there's only one pool out there. I'm paying the equivalent of $60,000 into life insurance premiums. But look, do some third grade arithmetic, that 23% on $800,000, yeah? I'm paying way more to the banks than I am into the insurance companies. Well, I saw that was backward, that I should be paying that kind of money to life insurance premiums. Now, that would create cash values I could borrow and pay off the snakes and dragons and never see them again. They're not nice people. I ran a genealogy check on these folks. I found there's canine ancestry in their lineage. They glad hand backslap you and tell you you're the greatest guy in the world when you first start doing business with them, but after a while, they hate you. They despise the ground you walk on. Do y'all understand that? Now, most folks say, no, they loved you. Well, you don't understand something. You don't understand the minds of bankers. They think you're going to bankrupt on them next week. Now, if you're some big tycoon, I could name 2 or 3, but we'll leave that alone. And he owes you $50 million and he bankrupts on you, the bank. He bankrupts on you. That's all right because they're members of the club. Well, who pays for all that? Us peons. That's what. Okay, so that's how all this got started. Several words have come up this morning that mean a great deal to me. Mark, I like your word freedom, and I like your word thinking. You and I talked a good bit about that this morning. Mark, you and I also talked about noise, didn't we? And it occurred to me as you were talking, Mark, this morning, about your prospects, clients, filling out that form themselves and revealing all their facts. Did you realize, Mark, that you're getting a picture of the financial noise that they have listened to all their life? All right, noise surrounds us everywhere out there today. My wife gave me noise-canceling headsets for long trips on airplanes. Look, you take those little, not styrofoam, the foam things you put in your ear, then put on that headset and then turn on that noise-canceling headset. Man, that's nice. I can sit and read a book there, and that screaming kid over there in the third row up, and never bothers me. That's noise. Everywhere you go out there, there's big-time noise. I'll give you an example. The financial world is just eaten up with absolute nonsense. And you got to be able to recognize financial noise and cut it out. Wouldn't it be nice if we could have a financial noise canceling headset that we could buy? There is no such thing. You got to learn how to recognize what is noise and what is not. Because when you get rid of the noise, it's just as obvious can be what the truth is. You can see clearly then. Now, one of the practitioners sent me something here in the internet a few days ago about the 10 top stockholders of Walmart. There was a big drop in their stock right along then, and the title of the article was, "Look how much money these folks lost." They didn't lose a dime. You see, I made this comment to Bob Murphy on the go-to-meeting thing we had not too long ago. I made the observation, you can't lose what you never had. And in the Laura Murphy report, he did a great job of, as he always does, of creating an article out of that. Okay, look, if somebody bought Walmart stock at that very peak there, and then the next week they sold it, yeah, they lost. But those stockholders didn't buy at that point. It was a long time ago. It's only a loss under those circumstances. That is all. I'll give you another idea on the down to the you and me level. My mother-in-law used to just talk on and on about the value of all the antiques she had. And I said, "Mom, show me a buyer. Show me a buyer." Yeah. See, the rest of that stuff is just conversation. It's noise. But how often does this noise reflect in people's lives? And as Bob Murphy was talking there in witness to you, when he read my book, why is it that a brilliant PhD in economics was having trouble reading my simple little book? What's your answer? My answer is noise. He had been exposed to lots of noise out there. And noise affects the people that you're dealing with big time. Now, to further emphasize that point, y'all know John Stossel with Fox News? He wrote a book about 5 years ago, Myths, Lies, and Downright Stupidity. Why everything that you know is not true. Noise. All right? Okay. Since the other the two talkers in front of me covered a whole lot of stuff that I'd like to get out of the way here, I'll just have to edit my stuff as we go along, okay? Infinite banking concepts. What is a concept in the first place, huh? Merriam-Webster says, an idea of what something is or how it works. An idea of what something is or how it works. Further definition about it: something conceived in the mind, a thought, a notion, an abstract or generic idea generalized from particular circumstances. So I named this thing Infinite Banking Concepts. But let me give you an idea of the distortions that people come up with. So many home offices of life insurance companies are having trouble with this because they say, this is not a bank. Well, you can read my book thoroughly and you will never see anything in there about me calling it a bank. This is banking. Banking is a modifier. It's all about a concept. Now, we got any automobile fans in here at all? Okay. Every once in a while, the automobile companies come up with a concept car, don't they? This is how a car might look in the future, etc. Back in my Air Force days for a couple of years when I got out of college, I was thrown together with a bunch of architects, and I remember one of them telling us that when automobiles were first invented, a lot of them came with a place to put the buggy whip. Yeah. They couldn't get it out of their mind that something with wheels has got to have a buggy whip. All right. That's the limitations of the human mind that is always with us. We really should look at it backward. I think the Spanish are notorious for this sort of thing. Agua caliente, that's water hot. Okay. Okay. Maybe we should say concept banking. We should look at it backward because this is a concept. It's not about a bank at all. It's about what you can do. Now, what about the word bank, banking and so forth? Remember, I'm an aviator. Now, I'm flying level like so. Now, when I go this way, what happens? I'm banking. Well, that's what makes the airplane turn. The rudder doesn't make the airplane turn. It just simply keeps the airplane streamlined. That is all. What makes it turn is the bank. Now, I've been known to go to Utah a lot to do seminars in the wintertime, and down the sides of the road there's mounds of snow. Now, what in the name of heaven do you call those? Snowbanks. My wife used to give blood regularly. Please tell me where she went to do that. All right, the church that I go to, we accumulate food there for needy and so forth. What in the name of heaven do we call that? Food bank, yeah. But the home offices, life insurance companies say, you can't call this anything like that because that belongs to banks. It does not. We have to teach them the English language, I guess. I don't know. Now, it's infinite. Now, how in the world do you describe infinite, please? Finite means you put limits on it. Well, there is no limit. It's just like the concept of eternity. How do you describe eternity? You can't. All right. Now, take a look at this graph here. This is the picture of what happened 102 years ago, almost 102 years ago, the creation of the Federal Reserve. Okay, here's the dollar at that time, 1913, it's worth $1. Okay, now you notice it's worth $2. Now, you see, it dropped precipitously in hardly no time at all. Down to 50 cents was all it was worth. There's some changes here, and along in here is where I was born, 1931. It went back up. Now look what happened. Who caused that? Bankers, and that's all. Bankers are the only ones that can do that. You see, our federal government turned that responsibility over to the Federal Reserve, which has as much to do with the federal government as the Federal Express does. Nothing. Look what happened. Now, to give a little bit of a comparison here of what can be done, first of all, do you have the feeling that there's something fundamentally wrong going on out there in the financial world today? They are the ones who caused it. Now, there are several things in life that we can't live without. Water is one of them, isn't it? You ever looked at the globe and see that about 80% of the Earth's surface is water? Sun heats that stuff up. That causes some of it to evaporate in the atmosphere. That causes clouds. They go around the earth. They precipitate out as rain, sleet, snow, and hail. And somewhere along the way, some of it flows through you and me, doesn't it? Now, when it flows through you and me, tell me where does it ultimately end up? Back in the oceans. It's a cycle. All right. Now, we have to use money in our world today, don't we? When you go to buy something, money has got to flow from an adequate source for whatever you're purchasing in a relatively short period of time. And you know those narrow-minded folks won't do business with you. No sense of humor at all. All right. If it weren't for the concept of banking, we'd be back in the caves. We'd be on barter. That means that there's got to be a mound of money somewhere there. And the question is, who is the banker in your life? Now, one more item here. Everybody needs a heart. Would you all agree? Huh? All right, thank you. That didn't hurt, did it? Have you ever considered the fact that you could live without one? Huh? I did for 2.5 hours. 27 years, 10 months, and 4 days ago. So they tell me. They had mine outside the chest cavity, replumbing it in 4 places. Any of y'all been through this operation? They don't do it all that much anymore. It's called quad bypass. What they do is they cut you from here to here. They saw your breastbone in 2. They'll open up your chest cavity, get your heart out. They put it in a little sack. They replumb it in 4 places, stuff it back in there, and zip you up. Now, normally, your heart is outside the chest cavity about 2.5 hours. Those 2.5 hours, my heart was not working. Well, here I am talking to you. What made that possible? A wonderful machine called a heart-lung machine. It does everything a heart normally does, but only marginally so. Now, do y'all know that Bill Clinton went through this operation about 10 years ago, something like that, maybe 12. Bill Clinton went through this operation about 12 years ago. It took 4.5 hours on him, 2 hours just to find his heart. What I'm going to demonstrate to you in the financial world, because of that thing that you see right there in that graph, the guy on the street in America is doing the equivalent of living off of a heart-lung machine 34.5% of the time. That is absurd. It should never have happened. But what caused this? Well, there's 3 schools of economic thought out there, and Murphy has already told you about the Austrian school that I'm totally in on. But the guy that has created the dangest problem of all time is John Maynard Keynes. Listen to what he had to say. He said, he died in 1946. The idea of economists and political philosophers, both when they're right and when they're wrong, are more powerful than is commonly understood. Indeed, the world is ruled by little else. Practical men who believe themselves to be quite exempt from the intellectual influences are usually slaves of some defunct economist. Boy, talking about a self-fulfilling prophecy. The entire world is in the dangest financial mess of all time on account of that fool. I can't explain any better than that. That is, it's foolish. It's nonsense. You can get rich by spending money. I remember very well Richard Nixon on television back there in 1971, was it? I believe it was. Yeah. He says, we're all Keynesians now. Now, if I'd had a brick, I'd have thrown it through the television, but that wouldn't have done him any harm, and it didn't do me any good either to just think about it. But I did shout at the television, you said all, you're not including me. Okay. Now, there is the Chicago school, Milton Friedman. He's noted for being a free market economist, but yes, he was a monetarist. Had to be a constant increase in the money supply, or our economy would stagnate and we'd be in a heap of trouble. Now, David Stockman. Y'all know that name? Carlos and Bob had him at the Night of Clarity as the speaker here a couple of years ago. Quite a writer, quite a brilliant man. And he wrote this book, The Great Deformation, The Corruption of Capitalism in America. And it's 719 pages. Now, about 2/3 of the way through it, you'll come face to face with the fact that it was Milton Friedman that convinced Nixon to come off the gold standard. Well, look what has happened since. Yeah, look what has happened since that time. Okay. Only the Austrians have got it right. The school actually started in Salamanca, Spain, about 300 years ago. But it migrated over to Vienna over a period of years. Carl Menger was probably one of the early guys. Eugene Bombewerk followed him. But Mises was the real hero. Mises came to the United States about the beginning of World War II. His point of operation was Foundation for Economic Education. Point of contact was FEE, Henry Hazlitt. Henry Hazlitt was one of the co-founders of FEE. Now, I knew Henry, but Leonard was my main man. There are 100 charter members of the Leonard E. Reed Society, yours truly and 99 others. What a joy it was to sit at the feet of a guy like that and to call him personal friend, and I could call him anytime that I just wanted to talk, and if he was available, he would drop things and we would talk. We'll go back to that. Okay, I'm going to demonstrate to you that the guy on the street is doing the equivalent of living off of a heart-lung machine 34.5% of the time. This is a guy 29 years old making $28,500 a year after taxes. What does he do with the 28.5? Well, he'll spend 20% on automobiles. He'll spend 30% on housing. I lied, it's 33. He'll spend 40% of whatever he has to spend on living, clothes, groceries, contributions to charity, Bank of America card, boat payments, one of the essentials of life. I really understated that one. I want to be able to say he was saving 10% of whatever he makes, and that is a bald-faced lie. Because you see, here is the real savings rate right here. It actually went negative a few years ago. Okay. Now, you notice back there in 1960 that we were saving about 8%. Now, there was fluctuations, but you notice there was an upward trend. And we got here to 1974. Oh, by the way, the shaded areas there are recessions, remember? And during that recession, we got all the way up to 14% and just could not stand that prosperity. Look how fast it dropped to here. And then it bounced up, and there you go. All right. Bankers cause that. Bankers caused that. They get the idea that you don't have to save anymore, so forth, that bankers are going to take care of you. They took care of you all right. Made slaves out of everybody. Okay, now the thing about it is these things are financed. This is the interest on the automobile over a 4-year period of time. Now, this is not hard. All you got to do is take 48 months of payments, do the third grade arithmetic. Now, compare that number with the amount of total spent, and you'll find that $1 out of 4 is interest. But you also might notice that 95% of all the cars traded are not paid in, not traded in or not paid for. So this is perpetual. I know this with authority. The typical mortgage only stays on the books 5 years. I've known about the real estate business a long time. I know about the housing business. Now, I was in Grand Rapids, Michigan about 6 years ago. There was a lady expert on mortgages at that conference, and she says it was 2.6 years across the board in America at that time. 2.6 years, and the mortgage was off the books. Something happens. We move, refinance, any number of things out there. Well, all this energy here is going to the banking business. Now, this is the interest on the Bank of America or the boat payments and stuff like that. Other things like comprehensive inclusion could fit in that category. That's not interest, but that's money that you could do without paying somebody else on. I teach that in courses. We haven't bought comprehensive inclusion on a car in 33 years. Now, we've isolated the interest compared with saving 10%. This is perpetual stuff here. And again, this is all caused by bankers. Now, the solution here is to become your own banker. And to do so, you got to find a place to warehouse the medium of exchange. And so the problem is that all those things in the budget that I just showed you are financed by credit cards or bank loans or even paying cash. You see, Richard Cantillon in Europe 300 years ago isolated the concept of capital has cost. Whether you like it or not, you either pay interest or you give it up. There are no exceptions. And so the idea is to get in a business, and not too many people really know how to get in a business. And the problem is they're financed by other banking organizations, not theirs. And this means that the interest proportion of every dollar spent is perpetual here. And the volume of interest is the criteria, not the rate. But if you get the doctors together at the doctor's lounge, you get the officers club officers in their officers club, talk about some financial. I guarantee you, what they'll boil down to talking about is getting a high rate of interest on the little dribble they're saving. That's absurd. You see, this all has to do with how people think. That's why I'm so proud of the fact that you keep talking about thinking, Mark. We got to get some basic understandings here in order to be able to see why this is true. We've already talked about the fact that you finance everything that you buy, but I can't say that enough. People give lip service to it, but they don't actually obey that concept. Everything begins with engineering. The car you drive used to be lines on a piece of paper, didn't it? If the production folks don't do what the engineer said to do, you're not going to have a car. You did. You got one right off the assembly line. Now, I get one right behind you. Same make, same model, same color, same equipment. My car, your car, they're identical. Go ahead and tell me they're going to perform identical during their lifetime here. No way. Everybody in this room knows somebody get 250,000 miles out of a car with no trouble, don't you? Everybody in this room knows somebody can't get 50,000 before they want it out, don't you? We have any NASCAR fans in here? Don't be ashamed of it, golly. Look, man, Talladega Raceway is only 42 miles from our house. And 2 weeks ago, there was 250,000 folks out there watching those cars go round and around. Y'all know what NASCAR is about? Go fast and turn left. And all those 250,000 folks out there hoping somebody's going to run into somebody else and we're going to get to see a big accident. All right. Some of those cars don't last 500 miles, do they? In Dallas a few years ago, one of the cars didn't make it one time around the track in the trial runs. He lost it in the first curve. You can't blame that on the manufacturer. My point is that how you conduct your banking business through life insurance is more important than what the insurance company does by far. It's demonstrated in my book. Actuaries are the engineers in the life insurance business. They are dealing with a field of 10 million selected lives. People have been through a screening process. They wouldn't put me in there in that pool. I've been through quad bypass. They'd have to put a fudge factor in there to put me in there. Now, used to be a 100-year lifespan. It's 121 years now. We're living longer. Now, they can tell you very accurately how many of those are going to die at any one time. They just can't tell you who. Now, are you aware that the best actuaries in the world are in Sicily? They can tell you who. Probably why and how. They take this data, they turn it over to rate makers that figure out how much do we charge to make this work. Then they give it to agents for lawyers to make legal and binding contracts out of it, I'm sorry. And then they give it to agents for distribution. That's all there is to the business. It's that simple. Now, this is how the idea works. Banking through life insurance is a process, not a product. If you don't put money into this thing, it's just a bunch of conversation. Premiums become the property of the insurance company. The insurance company has got to put that money to work somewhere to be able to carry out the death benefit. They'll put it to work in things like joint ventures. South of where I live in Birmingham, huge joint venture. River Chase, it's over 42 years old now. Joint venture between Equitable Life of New York and the Harbert Corporation. Money goes in to that, and money goes back to the pool. They lend money on mortgages, residential mortgages, business mortgages, stuff like that. Money goes out, money comes back in. Now, these are not subprime, folks. This is not subprime mortgages. That's Wall Street nonsense, okay? These are conventional mortgages. They're 20% down. Look, every time you make a payment on a conventional mortgage, the strength of the lender increases, doesn't it? You owe less and less. He owns a mortgage, a lien on the whole cotton-picking works. Now, let me show you another example I just thought of while I was listening this morning of more of the noise that goes on out there. Have y'all noticed how to get people to change their behavior, they change the meaning of words? That's the favorite means of changing behavior. Change the meaning of words. Do you know fully 99% of the American public today thinks the definition of home ownership is that you have a title to the property, but you owe 110% of what the house is worth. But you're a homeowner. No way. You don't own it until you don't have any debt at all. But you see what happened? That's how you think. There's a lot of no thinking going on, okay? they'll also lend money to the policyholder. Now, these are not all the places that they put money to work. Read the financial statement of any major company, and it's in instruments that have a guaranteed payback schedule. I said guaranteed. Now, that doesn't pertain to universal life. That doesn't pertain to variable life. That doesn't pertain to index universal life. This is conventional stuff that's been around quite a while. But I want to establish a hierarchy because everywhere you go in the world, somebody outranks somebody else, don't they? I wanted to pick 3 things that they can and do lend money on. And then this hierarchy here, low man on the totem pole is the joint ventures and shopping centers. Mortgages outrank them in access to that pool that's got to be lent. Well, why do these guys outrank these guys? Well, truthfully, there can be an element of risk here that is not there. Maybe I can explain it this way. Have you all ever been to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania? Do you know the geography of that area? 2 rivers come together there, Allegheny, Monongahela. From now on, that's the Ohio River, isn't it? Okay? Do you know that back when I was a teenager, we didn't have all that many magazines around. There was Life magazine, there was Look, there was Fortune, there was Saturday Evening Post, Collier's. That was about it. Today, we have more magazines out there than you can shake a stick at. We have magazines that tell you what Lindsay Lohan was arrested for last week. I mean, that's valuable information. We have magazines that tell you what Charlie Sheen was doing last week, so forth. That's valuable information. Noise. Unbelievable. I get on airplanes and I see people reading all this stuff. Good Lord. Now, back there, when I was in high school, Life magazine had a pictorial story of the rejuvenation of the Golden Triangle, Pittsburgh. They had before and after pictures. Before it was rejuvenated, it was slum. It was the pits. Maybe that's how he got his name. That was a huge project. Do you know it was financed by one insurance company? Yeah. One insurance company financed that. What was the pay scale of the home office guy overseeing that project? Was it low, medium, or high? What's your answer? Very high. A slight element of risk, huge overhead. What's the risk in conventional mortgages? I don't see any. When you pay 20% down and every time you make a payment, the strength of the lender increases, I don't see any risk. Well, what does it take to oversee that in the home office? Slightly above minimum wage. Well, read the policy and it very plainly tells you that this guy outranks everybody in access to the pool of money that's got to be lent. I don't see any risk at all there because that's guaranteed. Yeah. This is the safest loan they can make. Well, what in the name of heaven does it cost to oversee that? Well, again, minimum wage, that's it. As a result of what you see so far, there's an ever compounding, there's an ever increasing pool of money. Every once in a while, somebody dies. But before we look at that death, I want to just remind you that your need for finance out here is huge, okay? But the life insurance companies have been concentrating on death benefit. This is what yours truly contributed to the financial world. Your need for finance during your lifetime is much greater than this. Now, if you will solve for your need for finance here, you're going to have to put so much death claim down here, you can't get it past the underwriters. You'll have to end up insuring everybody you have an insurable interest in, if you understand what I'm talking about. Now, this is a pluses over here. That's a minus. Now, do y'all know the home office folks won't work unless they get paid? Again, no sense of humor at all. Well, you won't get paid. You won't work unless you get paid either. So there. This is a negative. This is a negative. Now, actuaries figure that they can do all this here pretty accurately, but they got to be forecasting the possibilities here on a conservative basis. We're not looking for high rates of return. We're looking for stability over a long period of time. They can be very accurate here. They can be somewhat accurate here. But the net product there boils down to a projection over a period of time of a line on a graph. But if we are out of phase here, or here, or a combination thereof, we could be below that line, couldn't we? That would be the function of a stockholder in a regular corporation. We don't have any stockholders. These are mutual companies owned by the policyholders. So rate makers, you got to take that in consideration. So if we compute this could be done for one per year, in your rate structure, don't collect one, collect 1.1, and call that a dividend. Now, when a guy on the street in America sees that word dividend, he says, here comes the IRS. Wrong. That's a return of capital. Any CPA will tell you that. Now, that dividend can become huge, but let's go back to this idea here of the 1.1. So, Tom, the directors call the accountants in and say, how do we do on Tom's policy this year? And the accountants say, well, we collected 1.1, but it only took 0.8 to do the job this year. Tom, we're talking about 2 or 3 years down the way. That is all. Third grade arithmetic says they can make a decision with 0.3. If the directors are halfway smart, and most all of them are, they're going to put 2.27, 2025 rather, in a contingency fund. That is exactly what it means, JIC, just in case. Yeah. They distribute to 0.275 and call that a dividend. Now, those dividends can become huge. This is if you take that dividend and put it back in the policy, buying paid-up additional insurance at no cost, what you have is a ever-compounding, tax-free accumulation. Now, this is a policy that I bought from my next older brother, who died at age 52 with a heart attack. Mark, I don't believe I ever told you he was a football coach. Yeah. Back in the days when coaches weren't paid very much. Now, these are the last 25 years of the actual performance of that policy. Now, I was 28 years old in my forestry days in North Carolina, 1959, $388 a year premium. Now, don't y'all laugh at that. I'm an Austrian economist, remember. All right. Look, man, a 28-year-old in 1959 making $10,000 a year was above the average bear. I'll bet my brother bragged to his peers at least 2 months about what he sold me. Didn't he? All right, these are the last 25 years. The red is the premium, the yellow is the guaranteed cash value increase that year. The blue is the annual dividend, and this is the total of the two, i.e., I paid $388. The guaranteed cash value increase was $500. The dividend was $2,000. some of those at $2,500. Now, this is not projections, folks. This is history, okay? You can't argue with history. Now, I want to comment, this is not a specially designed policy that was referred to earlier. This is just plain, ordinary life. Now, the next year, 388, guaranteed cash pay increased, dividend increased. Look what happened. Well, in 1991, you may not know, but there was a business turnaround. But dividend of State Farm went up. How'd they do that? Remember the contingency fund? When the directors met, I think that they said, look, our contingency fund is fat. Let's just dip in there. That's what we created it for. And pay, do the dividend the way we projected. Same thing happened the next year. But at this point, they said, look, our contingency fund has got a little skinny now. We need to just pay the same as we did last year and fatten up the contingency fund. And then the next year they said, well, golly, let's get more aggressive. Let's reduce it this current year more to fatten up the contingency fund. And then you notice it took right back off again. If you connect those dots here and these dots here, not dots, doggone it, bars, every once in a while you have a little correction there. Now, is that simple or not? Now, let's move out there to 2005, rather. At this point, I'm 74 and a half years old. I paid the premium, $388. Cash pay increased $800. Dividend was $4,200. The sum of those is $5,000. I paid $388. Now, at that time, I wrote State Farm a note. Change the dividend election. Send it to me from now on. I don't need the money, but I want to be able to show people checks. You see, most people, when they hear a life insurance agent use a number, I guarantee you go in one ear and out the other, because all those guys in the insurance business lie. Well, if you can't believe a check, I can't help you. Here is the first check. It's 10 times the premium. I'll read it for you. It's the $38.77. Yeah, 10 times the premium. Now here's the next check. It's $39.73. Here's the next year. It's $39.27. $39.73. Here's the fourth check. $4,025. You don't see any more checks, do you? There's a reason. You see, 2 months before it would normally be paid, I got a statement from State Farm. Send me your Social Security number. We want to make sure we got it right. Clerical errors do occur. Because that check for $4,056 that would come to you, that's going to be a taxable event. And we're going to send you a 1099. Now notice my verbiage, okay? Notice who's who here, okay? My response, no, you are not going to send me a 1099. You are going to change the dividend election at my direction to buy paid-up additional insurance, regardless of my insurability. You remember, I'm a heart patient. I'm uninsurable. Now, do you realize why they were going to send me a 1099? Now, this is going to get real complicated in there, so pay close attention, okay? $388 a year, 1959, what's that, 56 years? Yeah, 56 years. 56 years times that, that's my gross outlay, right? Yes, but you see, you got to understand something. Remember how important that word thinking is that Mark has dwelled on so much here? I thought back in those days the way everybody else thinks. If you're going to buy insurance of any kind, you want to pay as little as you can and get as much protection for the little bitty outlay. Hence, use those increasing dividends each year to reduce the premium. Y'all got the picture? All right. Now, this is where it gets complicated. 56 years times this, gross, reduce that by the amount that I paid, that I took dividends in cash or reduced premiums, just difference in accounting. Now we've got my net outlay, don't we? Those 4 checks, I've recovered everything I put in the policy tax-free. You understand? At that point, I have absolutely nothing in that policy. Now, from that point on, I have paid the $388, so I do have a cost basis there. Now, is this good or is it not? But this is not about banking, is it? This is just regular life insurance, just dividend paying whole life insurance. That is all. Not PUA riders. It's not juiced up at all. Okay. Here's where the good part comes. I'm an aviator, remember? I flew with the Alabama Army National Guard 28 years. Back in 1974, thereabout, one of my fellow pilots got trained rocking the hard place. He needed to raise some money. He knew I was educated as a forester. Might be willing to buy that 100 acres of timberland he had up in Fayette County, Alabama. I'll sell it to you for $50 an acre. I'll finance it for 10 years. I took that. 18 months later, he calls me. We need to talk. Let's get together. When we got together, he says, I underestimated my need for money. Can y'all imagine that? I underestimated my need for money. If you just pay me off, no more monthly payments, I'll discount it lump sum, 25 cents on the dollar. I computed that very quickly. I told him, stand real still, I'll be right back. I go down to the State Farm Regional Office. I have the policy number memorized. Golly, 810, 812, that's simple. All right, get me a $3,500 policy loan quickly before this boy changes his mind. In less than 45 minutes, I had a good check in his hand. He was paid off. Do y'all realize I had less than $38 an acre cost basis in that property? And you realize that I sold that property in '85 for $500 an acre? And I financed it for 10 years at 15% interest. Now, when the income came in, what did I do with it, huh? First thing I do is pay off the policy loan. What did I do with the rest of it when it came in? Have y'all figured it out? Bought another policy. Now, do the calculation on that and compute your rate of return, okay? If anybody's really interested in rate of return, okay? Now, I made 2 other investments from that same policy in timberlands that weren't quite that good, but they were very, very good. Now, you add those 3 up and it dwarfs what you see. That is what banking is about. All of us see opportunities out there in life. I don't care who you are. There's privileged information that you have that other folks don't have. You see opportunities. Now, if you have the wherewithal to do something about it on short notice, without any Mickey Mouse paperwork and dumb questions and begging and so forth, that is what banking is about. Now, listen to the noise out there. The noise says that, don't buy life insurance because inflation is going to eat you alive. All right. When I bought this policy in 1959, the death benefit was $20,000. Would you care to guess what it is today? I'm going to read it to you. It's $120,000. Now, what would it have been if I'd been buying paid-up editions with the insurance all that time, huh? About $150. Now, you got to understand something here. You got to understand the 5 factor, okay? My wife from time to time says, "Oh, aren't things expensive today?" You see, she's listening to the noise. Baby, what are you thinking about? Give me a product. Give me the price. Now, whatever that price is today, I want you to divide it by 5. And think about we were married 63 years ago. Everything will pop into focus. You saw the graph a while ago. I'm going to show it to you again from the Federal Reserve. Yeah. It takes $5 a day to do what $1 did back there in 1963. I remember buying chicken breasts at the commissary at March Air Force Base. Now, any guys got military experience in here? Okay, commissaries is better prices, right? Well, I bought chicken breast at the commissary, $63 a pound. Now, I try to ride my outdoor bicycle as much as I can when the weather's good to break the monotony of our neighborhood. Quite often I'll go over to the parking lot early in the morning of Winn-Dixie's strip center there. There's no cars there. And they had skinless, boneless chicken breast, $1.59 recently. That stuff I bought at the commissary had skin and bones. Prices had gone down. Mary said it went up. She's listening to the noise. Now, I worked my way through college. I paid for it all. ROTC was part of it, but mostly it was part-time jobs. One of them was a job in a produce store. Bananas was 16 cents a pound. Multiply by 5. To be equal, that'd be 80 cents a pound today, right? Costco and Sam's got them for 44. Highest price I ever seen, 79. Bananas went down. My wife said they went up. She's listening to the noise. Okay. Now, got out of the Air Force 54, went to work in Eastern North Carolina with forestry with oldest brother. One Sunday we were sitting around solving all the world's problems, you know, as men are wont to do, and got around to talking about cars. Now, that does just require a stretch of imagination, men talking about cars. Brother made the astute observation that the use of a car is going to cost you $500 a year. You don't want a car, you want the use of a car. All right? Now, my wife gets a new car every 10 years, whether she needs it or not. She drove an Audi 100 CS for 10 years. You take the initial cost, all the upkeep, it's in the computer, less the trade-in cost, it was $2,500 a year. Anybody want to divide by 5? What happened? Funny money and the quality of the car. You couldn't find a car in 1954 that last you 10 years. They weren't air conditioned. Can you imagine that? No power steering, no power brakes. Oh. Tires, 15,000 miles, that's the best you could get. Okay. All right. Now, we have 3 children. Our youngest one is our only civilian baby. She's born in 1960, Johnson County Hospital, Smithfield, North Carolina. Would you care to guess what the room rent was? $16 a day. We have the receipts. Holiday Inn room, Eastern North Carolina at that time, $16 a day. That's the same. Now, we travel all over the United States and Canada, and quite often we stay in Hampton Inns. I know what to expect. Their rooms are just as dark as anybody's. And suburban Phoenix here a couple of years ago, $79. And we had breakfast. Yeah. All right, now let's talk about the hospital room, okay? Anybody been to the hospital lately? My wife's mother was in skilled nursing for 3 years. Hadn't walked in 3 years. From time to time, I had to go to the hospital. Last time she went, Brookwood Hospital, semi-private, $1,500 a day just for the room. What happened to the 5 factor? government program. Are y'all familiar with Walter E. Williams? Walter E. Williams is a fantastic economist at George Mason University. Getting conversation with Walter, I've known him for 32 years, getting conversation with him and bring up health, education, or welfare, he'll reach in his pocket, pull out the Constitution and say, I've been studying this instrument for years. Would you show me where that's located? There's no authorization at all. But you see, one deviation from principle leads to an easier deviation, another, and after a while you made a official 180-degree turn and you don't even know what happened to you. People got to wake up and realize that the combination of all of this is banking. You see, banks are the ones that create the booms and the busts and so forth. They create the illusion that they have something and they don't. They call the bottoming out a depression. No, that's a return to reality. So the other was just a lie. Okay, now this benefits the bankers. It punishes the guys on the bottom end of the population. In the middle, I proved to you that it really doesn't make all that difference. Because you see, when I bought more insurance here, I kept up with inflation with no trouble at all, just with that policy. Coupled with the fact that, look, the dollar that I spent there back in 1959, wasn't that thing 5 times stronger than the one I paid here? Well, is that being honest? That's not being honest. I should be buying more insurance policies. Did I? Of course. Yeah. But that's not common knowledge out there because, you see, most of the world listens to the noise. Now, the thing that really ticks me, brother knew full well that I was paying Investors Diversified Services $600 a month, $50 a month on a accumulation plan. The IDS man called on me and he brought me that mountain wave graph of lies about the stock market. And he says, look how good you would have done if you put $10,000 in the stock market 20 years ago. Now, do you have $10,000 to put in something like this? Well, he knew full well I didn't. No, don't worry. We've got an accumulation plan, $50 a month. You keep putting it in here, and it will become $10,000 one day. And when it does, we'll swap it for stocks, and you're going to be fit for life. Now, he had a graph there showing the buildup and the values, and the curves, they crossed at 8 years. He made me circle that point where the curves crossed. 8 years down the way, the values would equal what I put into it. Now, that's a real good deal, isn't it? He made me circle that to CYA. That's an old medical term, right? Okay. Now, so $50 a month, that's $600 a year, right? Y'all got that? All right, this is only $12 away from $400. Okay, give me a break. I'm making $10,000 a year. Now, my wife and I made a contract 2 months before we got married. We will always tithe to our church. I'm making 10,000 is going to the church. 500 is going 400 is going here. 600 is going to IDS. Now, why didn't brother teach me to put all $1,000 in this policy? If he did, those checks wouldn't be 4,000; they'd be 10,000. Well, suppose he had told me to buy paid-up insurance of that first 15 years. Well, there'd be 12,000. Do y'all know that ticks me? Brother died at age 52 with a heart attack. Now, I'm the last of the Mohicans in my family. I've outlived everybody in the family by a full year. Graduation time is not all that far off. Now, when I graduate from this earth, I know where I'm going to end up. Now, if you don't know where you're going to end up, We need to abandon all this conversation that we're having and let's have a talk. That's the most important thing we could talk about. I know where brother ended up. He was a very strong Christian. Do y'all realize I'm going to meet that boy again? In the not too distant future? And when we do, I'm going to pass the pleasantries with him. And then go get him off to myself and ask him, why didn't you teach me this? So what's your answer? He didn't know. Why didn't he know? State Farm didn't teach him. Why didn't they know? Why didn't they teach him? It's only been there 250 years, that's all. All right. Now, you know there are people out there that say Nelson Nash did not invent this concept of infinite banking. People have always been known they could make policy loans. But yes, they did not include the word infinite, though, did they? You will not find any evidence out there of somebody pointing out that your need for finance is infinite out there. Yeah. Now, even worse than that is the fact that I was clearing land with tree growing purposes with heavy equipment. Caterpillar tractors. The time payments on each of the tractors was $1,500 each per month. Where did the finance company get the money to finance my yellow tractors, please? Insurance companies. And brother sells me a policy for $388 a year. All right, y'all got the gist of what this is all about now, don't you? Hear what Murphy has to say about this. Murphy is the one who wrote our manual, and he made an addition to it this year. He says in other lectures, the solution coming from the perspective of Austrian economics, we have explained how money and privatized banking will solve the problem that we diagnosed in the first section of the course. However, the restoration of sound money and freedom in the banking sector ultimately require legislative changes, bringing up all the problems associated with political action. In this context, the beauty of Nelson Nash's infinite banking concepts is that it allows households and firms to effectively implement a form of privatized banking unilaterally and immediately without waiting for a change in public opinion. Nash's IBC is fundamentally about banking. That's what the B's all about, after all. But it just so happens that the best way to implement IBC is through the use of dividend-paying whole life insurance policy. In short, the process of IBC is banking, but the platform is dividend-paying whole life. Thank you. One more comment that I left out here.
You're good.
For you guys who are still hooked on rate of return, if any of you are still hooked on rate of return, this is my latest report from State Farm. If you take this year's cash value, last year's cash value, subtract the little number from the big number, you got the growth, right? Yeah, but 388 is because I paid a premium. Subtract that out. Now, that's what State Farm did on its own, okay, on this policy. Now, if you take the little number and divide into the big number, that will show you the growth. It'll always be a 1 point something. 1 is last year. The rate of growth last year was 4.13 with no taxation. How'd that do with all the other stuff out there? Okay. Now, the other thing is that if I saw something out there today that I knew was a real good deal, no question about it, and let's say that I could buy it for $107,000, do you know all I had to do was call State Farm and say, send me money? You don't fill out Mickey Mouse paperwork and answer dumb questions.